Welcome to the Leafy Podcast, helping real estate investors and entrepreneurs grow. Say hello to your hosts, Jennifer Glagoric and Brian Price, founders of Leafy Legal Services, teaching you how to protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth. Let's start the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leafy Podcast. Thank you so much for being with us today. Today, we have Jennifer and Brian on, the CEO and COO of Leafy Legal Services, and they have an amazing guest today. So I will go ahead and hand it off to them so that they can get started. Jennifer?
So today we have on someone who started investing back in the 1980s. He was fixing houses and then began flipping the homes that he lived in. So he was doing the house hack before they called it house hacking. From then he has moved into a private consulting practice. He also has a really incredible podcast. A lot of you probably have already heard him or listening to him right now. So let's go ahead and welcome to the show, Shecky, Jeff Shechter with High Return Real Estate. Hi, Shecky. How are you doing? We're so excited to get you on the show today.
Well, thanks. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the nice intro.
Yeah, welcome, Shecky. Shecky's such a cool nickname. It's kind of a cross between, I always think of like Chucky and what was the name with Jack Nicholson? Here's Johnny.
So wait a minute. So you're equating Shecky with some insane doll that murders people, or an insane guy in a hotel?
It's just where my mind went. We've been locked up for over a month here, and so we have to get some sort of humor out of this somehow.
Brian has went to dark places, folks, during quarantine.
Actually, not even that complex. My last name is Schechter.
Yes.
When I was a kid, there were like 4 Jeffs in my class. And I was a little bit chubby, not by today's standards, but back then. And one kid started calling me Fat Boy, and the other kid started calling me Shecky. And it's like, well, let's promote the Shecky one. That's a little bit kinder and gentler. And so it just sort of stuck, and that's kind of been what friends have called me for most of my adult life.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So you have a lot of entrepreneurial background, and so I'd like to kind of dive in there and see where. It's always cool for me to see where people came from until what you're doing today. So why don't you give us a little background of how you got started into entrepreneurship, and then how that led into being into real estate?
Well, it was sort of born out of need, to be honest with you. My father, who has since passed, was actually a pretty well-known rabbi. So, I was firstborn son of a clergyman. And along with that comes just a crap load of expectations that I was supposed to turn out a certain way, be educated a certain way, live my life a certain way. And although I guess for many years thought that I would do that, there was just something inside that wasn't aligned with all of that. And although I wasn't necessarily like this huge outward rebel, I guess inside I was rebelling. And so I dropped out of college and just kind of had to be pretty scrappy. And entrepreneurship really was just born out of need. And just said, hey, I got to figure out how to make a living, and I did all kinds of crazy stuff. But I had an interest in making houses cooler, especially older houses, and that's just kind of how it started. That was way back in the 1980s, and it just sort of since
way back.
What's that?
I said, you said way back. Like that was really, to me, that was not that long ago.
Well, yeah, a lot has happened. Yeah,
I know a lot has happened, but it's
a lot has happened since then. And
I know.
But yeah, it's. There was a lot of years where I was not in real estate and got involved in some bad deals and bad partners, and I was involved in really pretty much getting my ass handed to me on a silver platter in the 08-09 debacle. And so. Like I look at Corona, it's like, this is nothing.
Been through worse.
Yeah, way worse. So, but yeah, so anyway, here we are. And I just think that overall, although I have had jobs to fuel my entrepreneurial spirit, I am absolutely psychologically unemployable. It's just really difficult for me to work for somebody else. I'm just too independent. And so I've just learned how to make things work being self-employed. And it has, for the most part, served me pretty well.
Yeah. What were some of those times that maybe things weren't going your way that you used to turn things around?
Well, like if you talk about 08, 09, I had a flipping business back then, and it had only been going for 2 or 3 years. I don't know why we thought it would be good to start it in 2006, but really nobody saw that coming. And I had a partner that was actually just, let's just say, less than ethical. And there were a lot of things that I did back then that were, with him or without him, were very stupid. You know, experience is always a very, very good teacher. And I would never do those things again. But when the market crashed in 08, 09, I was left holding a bunch of properties in my name, and was on the hook for quite a bit of money owed to the banks. And I actually was probably one time in my life, I could say I was probably in a pretty deep depression. Like there were days I really did not want to get out of bed, and I somehow figured out how to pull my way out of it, and eventually started negotiating with all my creditors. And of course, it split up from that partner. And when there all was sort of said and done, and there was nothing but basically a dust bowl left of my life, I just said, okay, I'm going to start over. And what are the things that I'm interested in? And at the time, I was living in San Antonio, Texas. I'd spent a lot of years in Texas, and I moved to Austin. And Austin at the time, now it's kind of overrun with people, but back then there was just this beautiful growing entrepreneurial community and this fantastic digital marketing community. And I was very interested in internet marketing. And so I moved up there to be closer to that community, and pretty much had sworn off real estate because I had been burned so badly in that. But yeah, I figured out how to pick myself up out of the ashes. And that was after, about a 3-month-long pity party. But eventually you just kind of go, well, okay. I mean, I'm either going to move forward or I'm going to kill myself. Pick one or the two. And I really don't want to kill myself. So what am I going to do next? And so after a while, you just kind of figure stuff out. And, that, and interestingly, that sort of foray in Austin was kind of how I ended up meeting my current business partner. So, things all happen in the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, that's just amazing. Your story really resonates with me. I had a similar journey like that, in the whole picking yourself out of the ashes. When you said the dust bowl of my life, man, I thought I feel that at a cellular level of understanding what that's like. So now, even though you have high return real estate, are you still consulting with people who have other types of businesses or franchises, or is it all real estate right now?
Yeah, somewhat. I don't maintain a lot of clients. I have 3 or 4 clients that I have, and we just talk about all kinds of stuff. And, they know that I've been through a lot, and I've started companies, and I tend to operate with those people probably just as much on a spiritual or an energetic level as just looking at numbers and what they're doing. I mean, my background, obviously, since those years in Austin, is more towards the sales of marketing side, but I'm also a pretty spiritual guy. So a lot of what we work through is just really what feels right. And honestly, that's the way I operate my business with my business partner as well, too. I mean, yes, it's important to look at metrics, and it's important to look at profitability. There's no question. But there is a whole layer behind that as far as how you are operating and how you are moving through the world. And what does that look like, and what does that feel like? So I take those same principles that we do here and share them with others.
Boy, I love that. Cool. And it's absolutely true, because if you're going to spend the majority of your life working on something, it's got to align with who you are as a person and what you're giving back to the world. And I see and of course we can all say that, but then there's millions of people that are like in jobs that are completely disconnected on so many levels. And then they wonder why they're sick, why they don't feel good all the time. And there are ways to make a living and take care of yourself and to feel abundant on other levels too. And it's just finding that mix. And sometimes it's not so easy. The questions are not so easy. It's great that you have both that marketing coming from digital marketers, which are what's your click rate? What's your click-through rate? What's the data say? Because Brian and I both came from that background too. So we know exactly what you're talking about. And it's just so dashboard driven and disconnected to something that more resonates. What do you think, as far as businesses go and real estate businesses, tell me a little bit about the things that you talk about with people who want to get into real estate investing, especially now that we're going through this crisis. Are you getting any certain questions that come up, like how are we going to get through it? What type of investing would we do? Where's your head at with that right now?
Well, I think it depends on who you talk to. I mean, look, real estate itself has its own cycle, and with or without things like coronavirus, there's going to be a natural cycle anyway. I do feel like, obviously Corona certainly disrupts everything. It's completely disrupted the world economy. So you're going to get a couple different kinds of investors or people just in general that say, hey, look, I'm going to remain calm, and I'm going to stick to my values and guidelines and plans that I have set forth for myself. I'm trying to build wealth. But I think it does force us to ask us, what kind of an investor do you want to be? And I think that's regardless of what the landscape looks like. Some people really want to be more passive investors and not do too much. And some want to get in there and really get their hands dirty and all that kind of stuff. And in all arenas, there still requires some level of knowledge and some level of education. Some require much more knowledge, some require much less knowledge. But in our conversations with our investors, we're starting to see two camps. They're the guys that are, and I don't mean just guys and gals, I'm not trying to be sexist, but people that are freaking out. How am I going to collect my rent next month? And, how is this going to work? And, it's like, well, I'm sure it'll all be fine. I mean, you've had vacancies before. So, okay. And that's for if you're holding a rental property as an example, and then there are others that are looking at it as opportunity. And so much of it, our own reality, is based really on our posture, on our, how we choose, what perspectives are we choosing no matter what the situation. And I think that Corona is teaching us that there's this, and we've always known this, but it becomes much more obvious that there's this gargantuan spectrum of different perspectives about this situation.
Yeah.
And for some it's fantastic. For us, it's great. I mean, like our turnkey business is off. There's no question. However, what that did was it forced us to look at really everything in our business, and we had time to look at some of the other stuff in our business. And it's created some fantastic other opportunities. Mm-hmm. So,
I was about to say, this is kind of like the Mercury retrograde for the entire world. People talk about Mercury retrograde as a time to you organize your closet, you back up your computers, you do the things that you haven't done before, you catch up with old friends, you loose ends that come back, maybe good loose ends you're supposed to reestablish, or there may be people you need to cut them out for good. It is the time to go back to your foundation. And I think that right now, so many people are doing that. So it's interesting that you guys are doing that too.
Yeah, I think that, it's interesting you mentioned Mercury in retrograde. It's great. And I 100% agree with you with an asterisk. As long as you are not using statements like, well, Mercury is in retrograde, so everything is FUBAR. So we're not, you know what I'm saying? So you put off other things. Yeah. It's very easy to not take responsibility when you make statements like that. So as long as you're not giving away your personal power, and as long as you are maintaining your own integrity and maintaining your own responsibility for your own life and your own actions and your own business decisions, then it's great. Right. Yeah. But it can be a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I like the way you qualified that, because I do believe in that it's a time for you to take stock. It's not a time for just to say, oh, well, I didn't mean that I said that, and you just let a bunch of things slip out of your mouth you shouldn't have or whatever. And you try to just, put it off to that. But yeah, it's with everything, there needs to be, radical honesty is the key to radical acceptance of your situation. But yeah. Brian, I interrupted you in a question.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Well, I can't agree more. I mean, I think it makes sense, because I think a lot of people are probably, Netflix is probably doing really well right now with the number of people that are watching things. But again, that's not taking responsibility. So of the things that you're kind of looking through and kind of maybe pivoting a little bit, what are the opportunities that you're seeing within, high return real estate that you're looking into or considering?
Well, we're in the turnkey business, so we're kind of we have this done for you service where we buy distressed properties, fix them up, get them rented, get them performing, and then we work with this really awesome national property management team, and we sell them to investors as performing assets. So we're working more with investors that want to be a little bit more passive.
Right.
But when that when Corona hit, we noticed a pretty good drop off in just our general sales. I mean, people were scared and they were kind of holding back and going, okay, well, it's all happened very quickly. But what's interesting is that, ironically, we didn't really experience any dip in rental collections. I don't know if we just had the right tenants or we had some government-backed tenants or whatever. We operate typically in more of the lower income areas. So we know there's people that have lost their jobs, but we were proactive about that and just said, hey, we'll work with you. And it's worked out fine so far.
That's good.
But at the same time, everybody was sort of scared of, we're in Indianapolis, our main operation. And we haven't really seen a big drop in prices. We've seen some drop in volume, but there's definitely just as many opportunities as ever before. And so we said, okay, well, if we're not selling the properties to investors, what other situations can we create? So some of the properties, we just put them up on the MLS and we retailed properties, and we're actually making way more money on those properties than we would selling them to the investors. Because when we sell them to the investors, we're trying really hard to keep that price down, because their performance is all based on that price to rent ratio, right? So with an owner occupant, for them, it's just about, did you get a mortgage, whatever.
Yeah.
And we're looking at doing some creative ways with seller financing for those people. And, it's just, and some of them, we're actually just getting more aggressive about building our own portfolio. It's like, well, look, there's nothing wrong with this property. It's actually a great property and it's rented. If the investor doesn't want to buy it, heck, we'll just keep it.
Yeah.
So our portfolio has grown with nicely performing assets, and they're, usually in the past, these properties would get snapped up very, very quickly because they're in good areas, gentrifying areas. And now it's like, okay, well, we're going to realize the appreciation and take the performance and all that. So
absolutely, yeah.
It's all worked out. I mean, we had to do some restructuring of, relationships with lenders and that sort of stuff. But it wasn't just like, okay, well, let's just throw up our hands and go like, well, gosh, we're out of business because we got a few investors not buying stuff like they usually do.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you guys had the foresight to buy it right anyway because of your business model. But yeah, I mean, why not keep something that's going to work well for the investor? You kind of become the investor at that point.
Yeah, and ironically, that's why we got into it in the first place. And we've had a lot of challenges getting this business off the ground. And, as any business owner could relate to, a lot of it is all about cash flow. And so most times we would actually rather sell the property and take the immediate cash flow, but we got into it to develop our own portfolio.
Right.
And so now we're, our portfolio has been rather small, and now it's like, all right, the universe is going, hey, look, this is what you guys are supposed to be doing all along anyway. So here you go. Right.
Do you normally invest in the Indianapolis area right now? Is that mostly what you guys focus on?
Yeah, we have some partners. We do some fulfillment for some other companies that also sell to investors, and they're in 4 other markets. And so we do buy some stuff there too. But I don't know, there's just something about, us being our own boots on the ground and going like, okay, I can interface directly with the contractors, and I can go and see and touch the property and go, okay,
Right.
this is going to be a good one. I know this street, and I'm not from here. Obviously, I lived in Austin and San Antonio for many years, but I've been here for a few years now, and I've been doing only this since I've been here. So I've been really, in the trenches, and I've learned the market here very, very well. And it's great. All of our crews are here, and so we're very comfortable buying here. And we have a lot of fantastic relationships as far as the people that we buy from. So that also helps, as we very much have our ear to the ground and are made aware of deals very, very quickly, oftentimes faster than the typical investor that's out there.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
really
interesting.
important.
You guys have taken more of a kind of going a mile deep and an inch wide approach versus a lot of times people go more wide in different areas looking for those hot spots. So is that something you guys are continuously looking to do, or are you looking to branch out eventually once, maybe you find other hot spots like Indianapolis?
Well, like I said, we have working partners in 4 other markets. So one of the conversations that we're currently having is, how do we poach each other's inventories? Right. So could my company sell out of their company's inventory, say in Memphis or St. Louis? Because we're all doing very, very similar things. And we've also, we're in a kind of, I guess you'd call a partial working partnership in terms of both the educational piece, but especially the property management piece. So because we've aligned with this really fantastic property management team, if an investor, say, bought a property in St. Louis and here and Tampa, let's say, they own 3 properties in 3 different places, that same investor could go on to, they would be managed by the same national property management company with offices in each one of those individual cities, but the online portal that they log into shows one portfolio with 3 different addresses. It's all the same. It's all the same computations. It's all the same analysis. It's really, really beautiful and really seamless.
Cool.
Well, see, that's good. So it's like almost like a consortium, but from the investor standpoint, they're getting, like you said, a seamless or integrated interface for that. But then they also have the knowledge that it's not some hidden thing. You're not sitting up there in Indianapolis by yourself. You have boots on the ground in other areas too. So they're going to get the same high quality that they would for an Indianapolis house that they would in one that's in Memphis or one of your other areas. Because I know that's important for investors.
Yeah, we're standardizing all the ways that we do, not just the acquisition, but especially the rehab and the checklists and all that other kind of stuff. And the other thing that we're working on is how do we, because we're already doing some of that in terms of materials and warehousing and things like that, but how do we then create even larger economies of scale in terms of buying power across 4 different markets, and then, drop ship things to those warehouses. So like we can buy stuff, like much cheaper than, say, what you could buy at one of the big box places like a Home Depot or something like that. And it's not a cut against Home Depot. We love those guys and certainly get some things there that we'll always need. But when you start going through a lot of, vanities and shower stalls and toilets and things and vinyl plank flooring and things that you're just going to go through over and over and over again, it doesn't make sense to pay that kind of pricing when we could be buying that stuff directly from the manufacturers.
Right. Or if you had someone on boots in the ground in North Carolina, that's there for their annual things, and you can have agreements with all these manufacturers for your flooring or for any of your staging furniture or anything like that. Right. Yeah. The power of buying is big. I know there is a realty company called Net Worth Realty, and they're all around, but all in the Houston area, all the realtors are also real estate investors, and they only flip distressed property. They do a similar thing, and they have agreements. So if you go with them, they have agreements and other things too, so you can save money. But I don't know if it's as good as wholesale. But yeah, it's a real smart move to do that. So it's interesting that you're thinking about this all now, whereas now is not the time to be stagnant. Now is the time to be creative. So I love that. I love that you guys are doing that. Tell me a little bit more about right now. You said you only have a couple of consulting clients, but does that also include what you're doing with high return real estate, or do you also consult with those clients as well that come to you as investors to help them get some feet into the game?
No, I keep those completely separate.
Okay.
Most of my consulting clients are just sort of become friends and people that they have other businesses that are completely unrelated to real estate. That's not to say that I don't have conversations with investors. I do, but in my company, I'm the CEO and I'm not necessarily the frontline conversation guy for investors that are that inquire to say, hey, I might want to work with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Those people would all schedule a call with Nicole. She runs investor relations, and her and her husband are also investors. That's how we met them. And she came to work for us, I don't know, almost 3 years ago, and she's friggin' awesome. And she knows the market well, and she's just super personable, and she tends to guide the investors through the process and does a very good job matching up properties with investors.
Oh, that's good to know. That's really good to know. So what's the better investment right now, do you think, since you come from both worlds, real estate or businesses?
Well, ironically, I would probably answer business. If you're a business owner, you have to look at, and this kind of puts me back with my consulting hat on, but if you have already an existing business that even with Corona is making some profit or probably all struggling a little bit right now, but you can still go out and advertise, you can still go out and do SEO, you can still go out and get more clients. Now, if you've got any kind of halfway decent process to your business, that's likely to be a 20, 30, 40, 80, 100% return on that investment.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy a really, really strong piece of real estate, like for us, we're in kind of lower price properties and most of our investors will pay cash. Let's say you buy a $60,000 property, and let's say it's got $750 or $800 rent on it, single family home. And you get done figuring out your vacancy rates and your cost of repairs and all that other kind of stuff. I mean, you're likely to maybe get 9, 10, 11% return on that cash. Now, you'll get some other tax deductions and things like that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a fantastic investment, but it's not the same as the investment in your own business. I mean, you're kind of comparing apples to oranges. But yeah, right now, if you're like, hey, I don't have a ton of money, I'm a business owner, I have a little bit of money, I would say right now you should be looking at ways to figure out how to make your business more profitable, more successful. That's what Jack and I are doing in our own business. And so once that is up and flying and running and making money, and you've got all that you can handle, and you are wanting to hedge your bet, then and only then do you take some of that cash and invest in other things like real estate to create some passive income over here. But I think your first responsibility as an entrepreneur is to your own business.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense, because you can generate a tremendous amount of cash flow from just the business, whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, having kind of a 9-10% return though is nice too, as it's kind of becomes your cushion at that point after you've generated that income. So yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think that as we kind of look at this, today, even everybody goes through crisis different times. It just now it's happened to everybody. And so it's easy to talk about, but, crisis happens to everybody at all different times. And so, no matter what happens, whether it's now or in the future, I think it's important to know how to pick yourself up and move forward, because, just 10 years ago, you had a crisis. I got stuck with the 2008, 2009, real estate bubble burst as well. And so, yeah, it happens to everybody, but, 10 years down the line, it's like you can come back even better. So I think that, hopefully you don't ever have a crisis, but when you do, it's actually something you can turn yourself around pretty well if you have the right mindset.
Yeah, and we get to choose our perspective. So, it's these right now, especially, it's like, what are you choosing?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, we're finishing up here with Jeff Shechter, that his friends call him Shecky, and he's with High Return Real Estate. To learn more, just go to highreturnrealestate.com. And Brian, do you have any closing questions, or do you have anything closing you want to tell our audience, to our Leafy audience, Shecky, before we go? No?
Well, any passing words of wisdom you want to pass along to our listeners, Shecky, and I know we've talked about quite a bit about mindset today. So
yeah, and I think the only thing I would ask is maybe some shameless self-promotion. If you're wanting to learn more about real estate investing in general, we do a podcast too called the High Return Real Estate Show. Which there's a link to it on our website and all that kind of stuff. But we have a lot of fun doing that, and we bring in all different kinds of crazy people that are doing some really unbelievable stuff in the world of real estate investing, and it's very, very mind expanding. And it doesn't necessarily mean that all those things are made for everybody that listens, but it's fun. It's a cool show. We have a good time doing it, and check it out if that's of interest to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Tammy will have all the links to all of this with this show, so everybody can just click and you can go right there and listen to these wonderful, wild, and incredible other investors in Shecky too. Anyway, Tammy, it's time for us to end, and I hate it because we could talk forever, but take us away.
All right. Thank you again, Shecky, for being on the show with us. And thank you again, Brian and Jennifer, for hosting today's show. And as Jennifer said, I will have all of the links to get a hold of Shecky in our show notes. And if you do have any questions or comments about our show, please email me at Tammy, Tammy, at Leafy Legal Services, and I will get right back to you. And if you like listening to our show, please leave us a comment and a rating. You can find us on any of the podcast platforms. We are at Leafy Legal, and you can also find us on social media, that same thing, at Leafy Legal. Thank you again for listening to another edition of our quarantine episodes here as we're all stuck inside, and hope you are having a wonderful week, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Attention real estate investors and entrepreneurs. Did you know that real estate investors are a primary target for lawsuits? According to the National Survey of the Court data, 25% of Americans risk being sued in their lifetime. However, if you are a real estate investor, you have a 95% chance of being sued in the next 20 years. Leafy Legal Services helps you protect your assets and strategically grow your business and wealth. Leafy Legal Services are experts at the Series LLC and Delaware Statutory Trust, two of the newest and most ideal legal structures for real estate investors. Leafy Legal Services have the most personalized and affordable solutions for setting up LLCs. Property owners are always at risk when it comes to their assets. Anonymity is so important. If you own just a rental house and you own your home, you have to protect yourself and your properties from any potential legal issues. Leafy Legal Services have the right solutions to make sure you are happy and feel secure. They offer cost-effective documentation that suits their clients' needs. For a free consultation and ebook, visit leafylegalservices.com. They are waiting to hear from you. leafylegalservices.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Don't wait. Take action now. LeafyLegalServices.com. Protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth.